Welcome to Pioneer Mindset, a place where we challenge our mindset and address the discomfort in both business and life by finding clarity resulting in bold conviction. I'm your host, Garrett Ruskamp, fifth generation farmer, husband, and father from rural Nebraska. Whether you're navigating frustration from past decisions or worry about the uncertainty you face today in your business, we're going to learn from our struggles and take on new challenges with a resilient mindset. Join me as I share my journey of struggles I faced in agriculture as a farmer and family man. I'm ready to dive into honest conversations to tackle the mindsets surrounding key issues that rural ag business owners face that will ultimately help you gain control, leading to a profitable and sustainable business. Let's adapt to Pioneer Mindset and get to it. Welcome back, everyone. For this week's episode, I want to talk about this topic or this conversation around what you're not changing, you're choosing. Now, what does that mean exactly? Well, if you make the choice or the decision to not do anything, you are choosing to stay exactly where you are right now. Now, whatever season that we're in, it generally seems like that's the hardest season. We all have to go through our own versions of hard seasons. But it seems like the struggles and challenges that we face in our current season are obviously top of mind. So those are the ones that are the hardest at that point in time. And so we feel like we find ourselves just feeling really sorry for ourselves in the situation that we're in and just the struggles that we're having to deal with. And so there's a lot of things that are obviously out of our control. Things that are out of our control might be, say the market's tanked. We didn't get rain or we got too much rain. The crop got hailed out. Scours wiped out a bunch of our calves. Hail hit our crop and took out our crop for our feed source or whatever that may be. And our combine burned up. Maybe your kid has some health issues. Maybe you have some health issues. Maybe your parents split the farm evenly. There's a lot of things that are constantly out of our control day in and day out, especially in agriculture, especially in farming and ranching. There's a lot of things that we cannot control. But, however, there are more things that we can control than we actually can consider, such as our mindset, our drive, our determination, our willpower, our attitude, our perspective, not to mention our actions, our thoughts, stories, and desires. So there's a lot of things that are out of our control, and we can choose to focus on those things, ultimately putting us in victim mode. It all comes down to what kind of a mentality you're going to have. You're going to have a victim mentality where we're constantly just laying down and let life happen to us, where we're just going to go there and be the victim the rest of our life? Or are we going to make the choice to change? Make the choice to change your perspective, change where you're at right now, change to acknowledge that this season sucks. This season is hard. This season is not fun. I don't like it. But we do have the choice to change, because if we're not changing, we're choosing. I'm going to keep going back to that. All right. So if we're not changing, we're choosing. We're choosing to be a victim if we don't change a victim mentality or victim mindset. That's exactly what we're choosing. We're choosing to stay exactly where we're at. So, are you going to stay in the victim mentality, or are you going to make the choice to change? So, this all kind of comes down to the pain of staying the same needs to outweigh the pain of change in order for us to do anything. So, we go back to, we need to make a change. Well, we're generally not going to make that change until something is the driving motivator. Something's actually getting our ass out of the seat and driving us to do something different, to make that change, to step out into the uncomfortable, to step out into the unknown, do something that's not fun, but it's got to be better than where we're currently at. There's got to be that pain that pushes us to make the change. So I think of this as how I was writing this out, or kind of getting this an outline here. I think of this as like the greater than and the less than symbols. You talk about the little Pac-Man almost, is it eating this side or is it eating that side? If you remember from school, I still struggle with the greater than and less than symbols, to be completely honest. But as I write out, the pain of staying the same needs to be greater than basically the pain of change. So it needs to outweigh the pain of change. Think of a Pac-Man symbol. The pain of staying the same needs to be greater than. It's actually going to point you into the direction you need to go. When that pain gets so sharp, so noticeable, so unbearable, that we can no longer stay there. We can no longer stay where we're currently at. We need to do something different. Otherwise, who knows, right? Who knows? And we've all been there. If we look back in our life, we've all been there to where we've had to just make a choice. We've had to do something different. We could not physically stay where we're at. And like I said, this could be in each of the core 4 areas of our life: body, being, balance, and business. There's always going to be times in our life where we have to make that choice. We have to make the choice: are we going to stay where we're currently at, or are we going to actually step into the uncomfortable and overcome that pain of change to get to where we want to go, to make a difference, to be in a different situation than what we're currently in? And so really what this comes down to is this pain has to outweigh the pain of change. And so I feel like this has been many times in my life where I can look back and say, this is very true. This is something that I went through. This is something that really was a pivotal moment. And you can point back to different areas of your life, like I mentioned before. So for me, I kind of look back into our operation. I look back into when we were struggling financially. After we went back through our hoop building expansion, after we expanded our cow herd and we took on all this debt, we were struggling financially because we did not have the integrity to do so. We were struggling to make our loan payments. We were struggling. The bank's calling us up, hey, your line of credit's maxed out. What are we going to do? Well, put in more collateral so we can keep farming on, right? That's what everybody does. We restructure, we term out this debt that we have, and we try to keep farming on, do what we love, and do what we've always known to do. And so I look back at those times and some of the very uncomfortable conversations that we had, and that pain of where I was at right now was so unbearable that we knew we had to do something different. So that has been the mentality that's driven me forward into making better decisions in my operations, better decisions for my family even. Everything that we do on the operations side affects the family. It's all intertwined there. But this all kind of comes back to, what is the choice that you're going to make? And we can think about this in different areas of our life, but thinking about this in your current situation right now, what are you going through right now? What's the pain in your current season that needs to be great enough, needs to be acknowledged enough, needs to be so noticeable, so unbearable that you finally step into the uncomfortable? You finally get some either help, you finally make a change, you finally shift your mindset, you finally get your ass off the seat, get your ass out of the bottle, and go do something about your life. Go do something about the pain that you're dealing with. What does that look like for you right now? Does that look like a year of 2024 where we had some losses because, markets went down? What are you going to do, right? That's things out of your control. But we had some losses, so now what? We're going to term this out? We're going to keep farming on? Or are we going to be able to farm on? We're going to term this out and be able to make our payments? How is this going to affect us ultimately? That's on the business side of things. Like I said, I could go through the body being balance here. There's always going to be pain in that current season that's going to be greater, okay? We're going to feel it the most. But at what point are you going to make the change? Are you going to make the choice to change rather than just staying where you're at? So another thing, what this comes down to all of this is not just a once-in-a-lifetime decision where I can pinpoint, okay, this pivotal decision that I made a choice to change. I made that choice back then, but it's a once-in-a-lifetime deal. No, this is the choice that needs to be made every day. When you wake up, what's the choice that you're going to make? Are you going to stay exactly where you are, or are you going to try to be better? Are you going to try to do better for yourself, for your family, for your business, for those around you? Or are you going to try to do better? What does that look like? This comes back to the things that we can control. Yes, we can focus on the things that are out of our control, but once we focus on the things that are out of our control, we just step back in mentality. We lay down, we let life happen to us. Or we focus on the things that we can control, going back to the mindset, our drive, our willpower, determination, the things that actually drive us to make the change and to step into the uncomfortable and do the things that we've never done before in order to not be in the situation that we're currently in. So once we go through these different life events, if we want to look back at them, the important thing is that we learn. What did you learn from some things that when you look back at your past? Well, I learned from our past, back when we were going through those financial struggles, is that we need to put more weight on the numbers. We need to not just be like, oh, it'll be fine, it'll work itself out. Because in the past, our operation, that we got by with that. We got by with, if we get in a tough situation, we'll just work hard and we'll be fine. If you work hard, you'll make a good living. That's what my grandpa always said. That's what my dad said to me because that's the generation that he grew up by. And there's different stories that we can think of in our mind that we grew up with where you just think, oh, if we work hard, we'll make a good living. Or just some different lessons that we learned. Well, I learned times have changed. And so the amount of financial risk that we have in agriculture these days is unthinkable, to be completely honest. And if you have the mentality that if you work hard, you make a good living, I'm sorry, you're being a little bit oblivious there. And back in when we went through our struggles, we were oblivious. I will be the first one to admit that. I'll throw myself under the bus because there's many times where we are oblivious to the own risks that we are taking. So in your current situation, what are you learning from now? What can you learn right now so you can try to be better in the future? Kind of taking a step back here, this all kind of comes down to maybe completing some sort of, say, like after action report. I had a conversation with a good friend of mine the other day, and I was just telling him, I said, there's times in life where I feel like I don't actually learn from the things that I went through, learn from past experiences. You go through life and you're just trying to do the best that you can and, sometimes survive. And so you don't always take the time to sit back and acknowledge what you went through or try to learn from that. And so he said, maybe try looking at trying to complete some sort of after action report. Anytime you go through something, maybe you sit back and just ask yourself, what went well? What could have been better? And then really at the end of the day, what did you learn? What did you learn? And really, I think this is a good phrase here that we can put a lot of weight on. If you don't learn from your past, you're choosing to repeat it. Now, I'm going to repeat that again. If you don't learn from your past, you are choosing to repeat it. You're choosing to go back exactly where you were at when you're sitting there in the suck, sitting there in the no fun, sitting there in the bottle, sitting there feeling sorry for yourself and that victim mentality. If you don't learn from when you were there, if you don't learn from how you got out of it, you're going to choose to be right back into that situation. Or maybe not yourself. Maybe it's not you. Maybe you're choosing that your kids are going to be in that situation. Think about that one. If you don't learn from your past, you're choosing to repeat it. So kind of a little side note there, something that's pretty forefront of my mind right now, and listening to some other podcasts, this is pretty similar. This is going to be kind of a generational deal, but looking back to like farm transitions and looking at family farms and generational farms and how they've gotten to where they're at today. If you look back at the operations that say the grandparents are the ones that held all the cards, say they decided to split it evenly, or say they decided to give it all to one kid, to the farm kid versus the off-farm kids. You look back at the different ways that, assets or legacies are divided up, so to speak, and you look back at, whether it's your situation, maybe it's a neighbor's, maybe it's a friend's, relatives, you look back from the outside looking in, or just even you personally looking back at that and you're thinking, learn from that. Okay, did it go well? What went well about it? What was good? What could have been better? What did we learn from that situation? So in most cases, I'd say the generation that's kind of controlling the cards currently, or maybe have in say even the last 10 years, is the generation that worked hard and made a good living. So you know what? If we split this equally, our kids are going to be able to work hard and make a good living and they'll be all right. They'll be all right. Well, I'm sorry to say, but that's not the case anymore these days, boys and girls. This has changed. Times have changed. If we want to choose success for our legacy, for our farm to carry on, but we end up splitting things evenly, I don't know if we're actually choosing that. So this all comes down to, what are we learning from this? What's the after action report? What went well? What could have been better? What did we learn? And if we're choosing to repeat history, we're choosing to put maybe our future generations in the shoes that you're in now, or maybe to put them in shoes to where they're going to have to sit here and decide whether they're going to sit in the pain and the discomfort, or if they're actually going to make a change. Maybe they're going to leave because they know that there's no future in the farm if it gets split up. Kind of a side little tangent here, but I think it's important to really acknowledge there's different events that happen throughout our businesses, and I think that's just a big one to really hit on. And so there's just something to say about being able to learn from that. And if you don't learn from your past, you are choosing to repeat it. So at the end of the day, what are you going to learn from your current situation, from past situations? What are you going to learn from the pain that you're struggling with right now? What are you going to learn? And then are you going to choose to stay there? Are you going to choose to repeat history? Are you going to choose to make a difference? Or are you going to choose to finally acknowledge that pain and let that guide you, drive you, be that determination, change your attitude, your perspective, your actions, thoughts, stories, and desires, going to lead you to something different, going to lead you to making a change, to stepping out into the uncomfortable, to doing something different, doing something you've never done before in order to be in a different situation than what you're currently in. What are you going to do? What are you going to choose? The choice is yours. I hope you found value in this. I hope this resonates with you. I hope this hits home to some extent. And I hope that if you have any issues with, say, trying to make this choice, reach out to me. This is something that's near and dear to my heart because we've all been there. We've all had to make that choice. I know I certainly have, and I know I'm certainly making that choice, and I will always have to make that choice in the future of, are we going to stay where we're at? Or are we going to make that choice to stay where we're at? Or are we going to make the choice to do something different, to be in a different place, to choose the results that we want to get for ourselves, for our family, for our business, and for our future generations? So that's all I got for today, and we will catch you next time. Thanks for tagging along with me today as we sharpened our mindsets. If you've gained insight from today's episode, be sure to take a screenshot to share or send this episode to somebody who might also find value in it. For more, follow me on Instagram @GarrettRuskamp or on Facebook, and join me next time for more conviction through clarity.